murder in Chickamauga, and the victim's father is being charged in his death. This happened on Hood Avenue in Chickamauga. The suspect is a former Chickamauga police officer and a current detention officer in Walker County. The victim died from a gunshot wound to the chest. The GBI performing an autopsy soon. Firefighters rushed into a house on 7th Street to pull a man out of a burning building. The cause of the fire is still being investigated, and the man inside has been taken to the hospital. 2 Marines who were killed in the July 16th terrorist attack have posthumously been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the highest non-combat award, at Ross's Landing Park on Sunday. A young boy in Bradley County who reportedly accidentally shot himself. The Bradley County Sheriff's Office is investigating and will release more details as soon as the investigation is done. It's been said that district attorneys may be pressing charges. Keith Peterson, sometimes known as Keith Robinson, has been arrested after a carjacking in Chattanooga. He's accused of stealing a 1999 maroon Buick LeSabre from a man he knew from jail. That's your news now. Russell Stroud reporting.
After this clear and cool start, expect some sunshine and warmer weather for your Monday. Still looking good. Highs into the upper 70s tonight. Not as cool. Lows into the mid-50s. For Tuesday, mostly sunny. Warmer highs 83 to 85. Back into the 80s again on Wednesday. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks. It's also the place for national brands like Scott's and Miracle-Gro and local expertise to help you grow the lawn and garden you've always wanted, only at Ace, the helpful place. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
What is bow tie saying this morning? We have to ask. Well, small dealings. You might think small dealings in a town on the other side of the mountain in the Sequatchie Valley, Dunlap, the farming area, and very full of very common, ordinary, hardworking, faithful, patriotic, probably pro-Trump type American citizens. And on Saturday, the residents of Dunlap voted to keep the mayor, Dwain Land. There are about 2,933 people in the city limits registered to vote, and a third of them voted in the election. That's a higher number than usual, and that is because of a controversy in that city which touches on the moral pulse of American government, and that touches on the question of constitutional rights and the power of the state, the power of the state's agents, namely the mayor, and that would be Dwain Land. He received exactly 576 votes, and his chief rival, Jennifer Greer, 334 votes. And you say, well, what does that matter? Well, those numbers in favor of the incumbent mean that you might say the persecution of an elderly couple will continue without political relief. And sometimes you think that, well, if we just change the man at the top, we'll have relief from a circumstance of a machine grinding on a kind of automaton, in this case, a legal automaton grinding forward and not stopping till every last timber is overthrown, every last brick on top of the other brick is thrown down to the ground. And that is what's happening in Dunlap when the city government, violating its own charter, has hounded and has sued in Chancery Court Thomas and Carol Gaddy. This older couple, she's 69, he is 71, are in hiding today. They're in hiding. They're fugitives because they refuse to voluntarily allow a search of their property absent a warrant of probable cause. And that's probably the best way of describing this whole conflict. And that is that the mayor wants to search the house on Main Street. It's a carbine shot from City Hall, and it's a good pistol shot from the old county courthouse 1 and 2 in Dunlap, which of course is the county seat as well, and where you have the various courts and the deed of records and the assessor's office and all the offices. That's a good pistol shot away is the Gaddy house on Main Street, and a carbine shot a little bit further is the City Hall where Mayor Dwain Land will continue to preside for another 4 years. as mayor. And the persecution, it is a prosecution of a civil nature. And because there are constitutional principles and legal niceties, if you will, being violated, it is a persecution. And I say that advisedly because I'm supposed to be objective as the journalist and reporter, David Tulis, objective, and trying to ask the best questions, because often the best questions are better than any fluffy answer, any evasive reply that you can get from an elected official or a politician. The answer is really worthless, and the question stands often regardless of the answer, and often the question is so good that the answer is not even heard. The answer is by a smart man like you, my listener at AM 1240 and FM 92.7. The answer is meaningless, as I think it could be. But the problem is we're not getting much response from Dwain Land. He will not give me an interview. I texted him a couple times in the past couple days asking for a comment about the election, and did not receive a reply. He said I had misquoted him. I volunteered to make amends and correct any quote that was incorrect or misread, and did not get any reply on that. So I think he just doesn't want to talk to me because I'm reporting something that the local press in that county doesn't report on. And here you can think about the value of the press. When you have an open press, one where the writer, he has to be a writer, okay? He has to start as a writer. He may be a TV person, but at the beginning of it, he has to write, and he has to think, and he has to ask questions. The press lets people debate things in the open, and that's what I did. Hopefully, a gust of fresh air coming from Chattanooga, Nooga Radio, and asking questions in that county where people are insulated and isolated, and they keep to themselves. And because there's no open press there, even though there are two newspapers that cover Sequatchie County and one covers Dunlap, because these questions have not been openly asked, people have been hush-hush about this whole case. It's almost 2 years old, and it is in chancery. The city charter requires all disputes under the ordinance to be heard by the city court, and that's done so that the legislature and its courts, real courts such as chancery or circuit or criminal, don't have to be tied up with what are private law disputes. Cities are built and created under private law, and they're all charged with having their own judiciary branch. They have executive branches, the mayor. They have their legislative branches, that's the council or commission, and then they have the judiciary, that's the city. And the city charter says all disputes have to be heard there first. Now, for some reason, the mayor did not go to city court. Maybe he thought he would have a more favorable hearing. Maybe he was buddies with the first Chancellor Stewart, who had the case. Now it's in the hands of Judge Graham. Stewart recused himself. Judge Thomas W. Graham has the case, and he has ordered that because, get this, because this couple who don't want to have their house searched, because they have not voluntarily complied and given their assent, voluntarily, right? Because they haven't done that, they are to be jailed indefinitely. You got that? Because here's this is the source of equity, right? The fount of equity in Sequatchie County says this: because you don't voluntarily agree to allow a search of your house absent a warrant of probable cause, because you don't allow it, I'm going to jail you indefinitely. Now you ask yourself if that's not abusive. Even the sound of it is abusive. It grates on my ears to hear myself say that. and so that's the issue in Sequatchie County. The mayor won re-election. Rhonda Summers, his third rival, well, there were two rivals. She won 62, and Jennifer Greer, the main rival, won 334. And so what I have done here from Saudi Daisy and Chattanooga is to write about this story. You won't find coverage anywhere except with me, because I understand the issues that matter, and I write about them in detail. And we cover these issues, these conflicts, if you will, for liberty, the abuse of power, the war against local economy and free markets, right? We cover that at Nooganomics.com. Our chief sponsor, that's Nooganomics.com. And my name is David Tulis, and I may be the smartest man in Chattanooga, but that's by, if ever it proves to be the case in one issue or the other, it's by God's grace and just hard work. And I have to work very hard to be right about anything, and to present that to you here at Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and FM 92.7. So the Gaddies remain in hiding. They face arrest and jailing. She says, I can't be jailed because I'm old. My husband is old. It would ruin our health. We are already very vulnerable in our health. And so they're hiding. And the case is just in waiting. It's just in waiting. I've said, Carol, why don't you just surrender? Take the injury that the jail would cause you. And but of course, since they don't plan to grant permission to search, they're going to be in jail for potentially years. This violates, as I have suggested, this violates the Tennessee oppression statute, which makes it a Class E felony to knowingly and intentionally use one's authority under color of law to oppress someone of his rights, to separate someone from his rights or her rights, or any other civil rights, constitutional rights. That is a felony to do that. So we have 3 people potentially who could be charged with felony if we could get the district attorney, or if you could get the district attorney, you, my listener, get the district attorney in Sequatchie County to investigate this under that provision. The oppression statute is intended to protect the operation of government. Okay, that it is. If you oppress someone under color of law, you are oppressing someone and stymieing and blocking and preventing the right operation of government. So that it is the abusive use of power. And that is what we have going on right now, today, as we speak, at this moment. This fearful couple in hiding, and the judge waiting for them to be arrested and waiting for them to voluntarily grant search of their house, so that for some unknown reason. And we point out that the mayor is landlord of probably 150 trailer homes in that city and county. And you might say they're shabby. Now, I have a kind of a quandary writing about this, because I had to praise Mayor Land for being a landlord who seems to be very well liked by his renters. The ones I spoke to last week were all very much in his favor. They liked him. They think he's prompt with repairs. If anything goes wrong, he's a very gracious and merciful landlord and fixes things right away. And having a cheap place to live is important for poor people. And I think we need to have more trailer parks, in fact, not fewer, more trailer parks, even in the heart of Chattanooga. Why? So people who are poor can live here and work here. The more you have regulation of property and dwellings, the harder it is for poor people to live and work. The farther they have to drive to work, right? That means there's more demand for highways and interstates and the like. And we need to have less control so that poor people can live near their places of employment. And Mayor Land provides a great service of having inexpensive trailer homes to rent. But you could say, well, these look shabbier than the house of the Gaddys. They seem more in danger of falling in and falling over than the Gaddy house. And that's true. The Gaddy house is an older 19th century house built after the war to prevent Southern independence. But it's being remodeled. It's been remodeled now for 20 years, though the judges stopped remodeling and banned all work on the house until the, quote, inspection is allowed, for who knows what reason. So it's really a search. And the main constitutional point for you, my listener, to remember is this. There is no civil grounds for a search, okay? There cannot be a civil grounds for a search unless it's in a contract of some kind. But here we have a private house, private landowner, or landholder, I should say. No one really owns land in the United States because the privilege of owning land is taxed. But we'll call them householders or landholders. They have the right to say no. And they are being oppressed. It's right here, right near Chattanooga. And this is David Tulis. We're brought to you by Window Depot of Chattanooga.com, Window Depot of Chattanooga.com, and Boyd's Speedway. Boyd's Speedway. We cover local economy and the free market every day here at Nooga Radio. Now, at the top of, at the second main story on Nooganomics.com is probably the most important story I've written in the past 2 years, and I'm the only media outlet to cover it. And that is the Basil Marceaux case. Basil Marceaux is the candidate for governor in 2010. He was laughed at Comedy Central. He seemingly made a joke of himself in national media. He had his moment of internet glory and his moment of, you might say, public ridicule gladly accepted by this very uncharming man, I think from a Pennsylvania background. But here he is living in Saudi Daisy in a ramshackle trailer with his wife and I think his son and maybe a daughter-in-law, and one that probably needs some loving attention. But he's a kind of a legal scholar and someone who has been in continuing trouble with the police. Now he's making an argument that I I've come to understand the argument. Okay, this is important because I'd say that his arguments are perhaps the biggest legal issue in the past 20 years in Tennessee, and you're not going to find out about it anywhere but from me, David Tulis, because I give time to these issues and I read. I spend long, boring hours reading law books and looking up cases as God allows me to do that. And Basil Marceaux has been very patient with me. He's been very forgiving, very understanding, very kind to me. I'm a slow person. I may be the smartest person in Chattanooga, but I'm the slow man of Chattanooga. I'm slow. And that's why I ask good questions, because, if you're the slow person, you ask the dumb question. And the dumb question is often the best question. And so if you want to find out what this story is about, he has a hearing today in Neil Thomas's circuit court. He has a hearing at 2:00 today, Neil Thomas Circuit Court, Basil Marceaux. And I'm going to attend. I'm just trying to understand. I'm just baffled how it is that he's there. And I asked Melidia Cluel this morning, Melidia, who's on your side? Who's your guy, right, handling this case in circuit court? And she said, well, we don't go in circuit court. We're not in circuit court. And she's not in circuit court. Well, and she said, we're not there unless we're subpoenaed, and that's very rare. Well, whom is Basil Marceaux opposing then in this hearing? Who's the other side? It's a criminal matter, as far as I understand, out of city court in Saudi Arabia, a traffic case. And here, this is the problem, though. This is the grave problem that Basil Marceaux is raising, and he's on a quixotic quest, and that is to say, Don Quixote, right? That's the word. Quixotic comes from Don Quixote by Cervantes, the Spanish novel, I guess, of the 1600s, maybe early 1700s, and Don Quixote, the tilting, you're firing, you're throwing your lance at windmill blades, right, as if they're the enemy, and somehow it's a kind of ridiculous picture. And it is slightly ridiculous, and that's Basil Marceaux. But it's quixotic in the sense that he's been told by the judge, well, why don't you find the court where this hearing is supposed to be held? Where is it's not here? It's not in criminal court. Where is it to be held? It's a complicated issue, but in a nutshell, I think Basil Marceaux is taking on good faith something that he maybe should be ignoring, and he should insist on his main point. And this main point is the following, and this. It may not sound like a shocker when I tell you what it is, but it really is a shocker. And the shocker is this: that city jurisdiction, in city jurisdiction, there is no authority or power to enforce statute. Okay, now what that means is, if he's right, then the city police department cannot exist. That's the end of his argument, and that's what he wants. He has been so harassed by police over the years. Traffic stops. He's been a free traveler of the road. Now I think he has a driver's license now, so he's in Commerce now as a licensee of the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. He's in Commerce, but he has been a free traveler, and he has argued that case, that line of thinking, that you have a right to travel on the public road on a car or truck if you're doing it privately without being involved in commerce. Right? His argument is the city cannot enforce statute. And I have it on authority that when the city tried to raise the wages of city court judges back in Judge Walter Williams' tenure, the exciting tenure of Walter Williams, that the state withdrew its authority from the state to enforce statute. I hadn't thought about that, and I'd really forgotten about it. And I'm sure there's some ruling or directive on that point. But if Marceaux is right, then there cannot be the legal operation of police departments in the city limits of Chattanooga. That, if he's right, that's the implication, and that is a startling implication. And if you are a young black man like Melvin Hanson, who's been stopped 30 or 40 times in your career as a 29-year-old black male, well, that might be news worth considering. That might be even a prospect worth celebrating. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute. If we don't have police in Chattanooga, we're gonna have all kinds of violence. We're gonna have people who are bullied by other people. Well, maybe there's some private bullies out there who will bully people. But if you're a black man, you're a black person. The police are not people you really care about. You don't really love them. In fact, you are very wary about them. In fact, so wary are you that the police are making a remarkable effort, as the headline of the Chattanooga Times Free Press says, Chattanooga police seek closer community ties. This is a meeting that the Chief of Staff, David Roddy, the police department, outlined a new program to make police seem more likable, right? And one of the parts of that scheme is to have having a lineup of the morning roll of officers and people's front porches, where they talk about intel, they make note of intelligence and other developments reported in the last shift. This is according to Paul Leach, the reporter at the Times Free Press. He's writing about this effort regarding city employees who are viewed with fear. So we have a City of Chattanooga corporation, and its staff are held to be agreeable or at least competent. But part of the staff wearing blue uniforms are looked at with fear. And so to counter that fear, police department is testing the idea of lineups on people's front porches. Demetrius Coonrod commends Roddy for launching the program and said she might want to have a police lineup on her porch. She said, I think it's very important for the African-American community because a lot of us don't have trust and haven't had opportunities to build relationships with police officers that are there to serve and protect. Well, police are there to serve and protect to a point. Their main goal, of course, is law enforcement. And the hearing this afternoon by Basil Marceaux, this is a news tip, okay? If you're a reporter tuning in for a minute here, that's a news tip. The Basil Marceaux hearing at 2 o'clock is important. It's important because he's saying that there is no authority for police to involve themselves in insecurity at all. They're not able to protect at all. At best, he says, Basil Marceaux says, at best, police are process servers, and they have no authority more than you or I. Though we're told otherwise, and though police have authority to involve themselves in statutorily permitted extrajudicial summary killings. That's something that police departments all around the country will fight to protect. The Fraternal Order Police will make sure that power is not removed ever. So we have a great conflict here, and the fault line has been identified by this crank, right? This legal buffoon, Basil Marceaux, and he's has a hearing today. Judge Neil Thomas is off court at 2 o'clock at circuit court. What is a criminal case doing at circuit court anyway? This is how this happens. I don't know, but Basil Marceaux is in the thick of it. This is David Tulis, and we're in the thick of it too. 1240 and 92.7.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. News now. The GBI has been called in to investigate a murder in Chickamauga, and the victim's father is being charged in his death. This happened on Hood Avenue in Chickamauga. The suspect is a former Chickamauga police officer and a current detention officer in Walker County. The victim died from a gunshot wound to the chest. The GBI performing an autopsy soon. Firefighters rushed into a house on 7th Street to pull a man out of a burning building. The cause of the fire is still being investigated, and the man inside has been taken to the hospital. 2 Marines who were killed in the July 16th terrorist attack have posthumously been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the highest non-combat award, at Ross's Landing Park on Sunday. A young boy in Bradley County who reportedly accidentally shot himself. The Bradley County Sheriff's Office is investigating and will release more details as soon as the investigation is done. It's been said that district attorneys may be pressing charges. Keith Peterson, sometimes known as Keith Robinson, has been arrested after a carjacking in Chattanooga. He's accused of stealing a 1999 maroon Buick LeSabre from a man he knew from jail. That's your news now. Russell Stroud reporting.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
After this clear and cool start, expect some sunshine and warmer weather for your Monday. Still looking good. Highs into the upper 70s tonight. Not as cool. Lows into the mid-50s. For Tuesday, mostly sunny, warmer highs 83 to 85. Back into the 80s again on Wednesday. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks. It's also the place for national brands like Scott's and Miracle-Gro and local expertise to help you grow the lawn and garden you've always wanted, only at Ace, the helpful place. And I'm Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out, and Brad Keselowski has won stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall that will bring out the caution waving once again, and again it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble! Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back, the field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chucks him off, coming off turn number 2, nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway, here at
live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
I've been a customer at SNS 14 years. It's way out of my way, but I'm well treated. I believe what I'm told. Price is reasonable. David Tulis here. Make an SNS appointment today. This week, get $50 off any 30,000-mile service or timing belt repair. And get a free combat knife as a gift. SNS Auto Repair specializes in Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. 6-time winner of Best of the Best award in the Times Free Press. 855-3436. ssautorepair.net. 855-3436.
Final expenses, funeral cost, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
I've got a $10 bill for you at the best paint store in Chattanooga. David here. Big savings in exterior stains. Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. More than a paint store. Bring up $100 on your next upgrade. Plunk down just $90. Save on all outdoor stains in stock at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. Prolix Sickens. Benjamin Moore, Flood, Sanson, Richards. 10% off through May 13. Jim and his team are here to help and advise and to help you hold on to your money. 5529 Hickson Pike. Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. ChattanoogaPaint.com.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
Of course, that means there are others who are smarter than me. They just don't have bow ties. I'm the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga. And this is David Tulis. The distinction is different, I would suggest, and that is that I'm the blogger with the biggest pen, the writer with the biggest pen, and that is a 180-foot tower in Saudi Daisy for 1240 a.m. Our tower, powerful signal reaching out across the landscape, serving you, my listener, here. We cover local economy, the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. And my argument is a very weak and wonderful, wispy sort of argument. It sounds a little religious, perhaps, but I am a deacon in the church, so you can see my origins. Love your neighbor and buy local is our slogan, our operating slogan, and that you, my listeners, should start your own business now. Better that 100 men like you have businesses started in their spare bedrooms or garages, rather than Nokian Tire builds a plant here and hires 100 people. Rather, we have 100 owners rather than 100 employees. And we wanting to have, in the goal of having more local economy, I think we have to have less killing and less neglect. It sounds obvious, but a lot of people, when they hear about a killing, let's say by a police officer or a jailer, when they hear about a killing, they say, well, that's just what happens. They're ready to excuse the fact that it's crowded. There are a lot of people in custody. There are a lot of people that have to be policed. And so it's easy to somehow forgive and forget abuses of local economy and the free market by the state and its agents. Now, there's a man who got lost in the system. We're going to talk about him now. He was named Billy Joe Rogers, and he's dead. Okay, he's underground now, and the roots are already coming through his casket and worming their way through his rib cage. He was 39 years old when he died as a carpenter, unmarried, and has a mother and a passel of sisters and brothers who are angry that he died at the hands of the Bradley County Jail. And we have John Wolf, an attorney here in Chattanooga, on the phone telling us about the claims. He has crafted together in some series of pages, right, an argument made on paper with words and submitted to the judge. And John Wolf, what is the argument being made? What is being demanded by Billy Joe Rogers' family in his death?
Well, thank you for having me on today. It's great to be on your station, and this is a sad situation. And I regret that we had to go to the media. I regret we had to file a lawsuit. But what they're demanding is information. There's been a total information blackout. The sheriff, the county attorney, the district attorney will not turn over any documents, which would include, for instance, witness statements, which would include video of the jail. Everything in the Bradley County Jail is videoed except inside the cell of a prisoner. And they won't turn that over. The statements that the jailers gave relative to what happened that day, they won't turn that over either. So we're going to have to go to court. We asked for it. We wanted to go ahead and get the documentation before we file a suit so that we could file a more coherent and factually based suit. But we're really operating in the dark. There's been a total information blackout by the authorities in Bradley County and, the district attorney. And so we're going to have to fight against that and try to shed some light on what happened first. And then, of course, once we do, we'll revise our lawsuit in accordance with the facts as we find them out. But we don't know exactly what happened. We do know the autopsy showed that his death was a homicide, and that's a matter of public record. We can reveal that. But they won't tell us who did it, why they did it, and the circumstances under which it happened. So, we're at a loss, and I just never seen anything like this before. If Bradley County had its way, the family would never know how Billy Joe Rogers died. They would be at a loss as to who the assailant was who took their relative's life.
So we don't know whether this man who was in a cell with other men, apparently, right? He was in a cell with other defendants, other people being held. We don't know whether he was, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And see, the bad thing, too, about this is that he wasn't even, the reason he was in jail was for negligence, not for an intentional crime. What is alleged against Mr. Rogers is that he let dogs out, that he brought some dogs on some property and didn't fence them in properly, and then someone got bitten. And so, he didn't intend for that person to be bitten. He just did, at most, what he's responsible for doing is not maintaining a fence very well. And most of the time, you never get put in jail for a negligence offense. And in this case, somehow or another, they did. They put him in jail for that. He had not been convicted of anything. He had no criminal record whatsoever. And he was in there for a carelessness offense.
Right, and that was failing to appear, according to Christina Riel. The TV station has a report about this.
Well, he was held up in traffic and was late for court. They revoked his bond, but he never should have been bonded in the first place. What he did was not a criminal offense.
So it was a civil matter, if anything, and in
my opinion, it should have been handled civilly, or with a civil summons or citation to abate the nuisance, and then been fined accordingly if that's what he was guilty of, indeed.
So whether he was strangled, whether he was punched or kicked or beaten or choked on his lunch, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't. And the autopsy, I think there's going to be a whole lot more that happens in the next month or two once we get subpoena power and all that kind of thing. Now that we have filed a lawsuit, we have access to get records and force people to show up for depositions and to give testimony. I think there's going to be a whole lot revealed as time goes on. One of the things that Bradley County did too is as Mr. Rogers lay dying on the floor, what they did to avoid having to pay any medical bills for something that happened to him in their prison, what they did is they ran to a judge and got an OR bond. And here this guy was in a coma, maybe technically dead. And the first thing that occurred to them was, I don't want to pay for it. And that's what must have gone through the jailer's mind, the administration of the jail's mind. So they run to a judge, and as he's lying on the floor, he's OR'd, which means he has a chance that he's not even under arrest anymore. And that's how far they go to avoid responsibility for what happens inside their own jail.
Okay, John.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, it's just beyond. I'm just flabbergasted even today, a year later.
All right, John. This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Wolf, attorney. Now, you lost me back there. Back up. He was dying, and someone rushed to a judge in Bradley County and asked for an OR bond. What does OR mean? What is the
OR means own recognizance. That means that they're So he was a detainee. He was not a prisoner as such. He was a detainee awaiting trial. He had been convicted of nothing. And so OR means they wanted him technically free. Even though he couldn't leave the jail, they wanted the judge to relieve them of any, in effect, to relieve them from any responsibility for paying for the medical treatment that was necessitated by prisoner assault. And the Bradley County Jail is overcrowded. I mean, the conditions there are awful. They've been cited by the Tennessee Correction Institute for bad food, for health hazards inside the jail, for overcrowding. At the time this happened, there were so many men in a cell that when new arrestees came in, there was no room for them. So a lot of people were out in the Bradley County Jail parking lot, seat-belted into the back of a police car, handcuffed and fed food and allowed to sleep there. That's how bad the situation is. You get a bunch of men in a crowded place, you're going to have events like this because it ratchets up pressure. It puts too many people in contact with too many other people, and they don't get to go outside anyway. They're kept in. They're supposed to have an hour of daylight every day. They don't get it. I mean, they violate just about every rule you can think of up there. I mean, they're compressed like sardines, and it's terrible. The conditions they have to endure up there. Plus, the jail's got gang problems, and the jail has drug problems and things like that. There needs to be, and we call for this in our lawsuit, a total grand jury investigation. The civil grand jury go in there, investigate that, have inquisitorial power of the grand jury. That means the issue, they have the right to get people to come before them and testify and produce documents, and then let the grand jury perform a good function, and that would be to make the recommendations to the county and to the county commission as to what needs to be done to make that jail come up to standards. I mean, what they're running right now is like something out of the dark ages.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with John Wolf, the attorney in Chattanooga. He's filed a suit on behalf of the family of a man slain in April 2016, just before the statute of limitations ran out. The death of Billy Joe Rogers, 39-year-old man, a carpenter, he unmarried, and his mother and numerous siblings engaged John Wolf to sue. The claim, the suit is demanding $11 million. And the mother said on television in a report published by Christina Riel, the reporter, I'm not sure which, it's TV 12 or TV 9, pointing out that it's not the money that's sought, but a reform. Well, John, let me ask about the date of death. Why can you not tell me the date of his death, please? What's the story there?
Well, we don't know for sure exactly when he died. The assault took place on the 28th, but then he basically was taken to the hospital, and he was on life supports, but I think that his brain function ended rather quickly, or quickly after he was in the hospital. And so at that point, I think on his driver's license, he had checked permission to go ahead and have his organs donated. And so what they did is they kept him alive, I think, or at least, even though his brain may not have been functioning at that time, they did have him on a respirator, and they were therefore able to, I suppose what you could say, harvest. He could donate his organs as he wanted to do. And And so they were able, he was able to, or the doctors were able to do that. And I think that's,
John,
I guess a good note to a terrible ending.
John, isn't that a
was
terrible?
Able to help other people through his death.
John, isn't that destruction of evidence? Here we have a man who's dead under mysterious circumstances, and his body is harvested. Doesn't that eliminate evidence for forensics purposes in his death? Isn't that is his body cremated now?
Point. And once we get into the case, we're going to try to find that out. I mean, it's that's a good point. I think that you have hit on something there that needs to be addressed by the Bradley County authorities. Now, of course, he was given an autopsy. There was an autopsy done fairly soon after his death, and so.
And that report is under shield.
I'll have to talk to the medical examiner about that.
Well, real quick question, John Wolf. Let me ask a question that Basil Marceaux is raising in his claims. Basil Marceaux proposes that in the city of Chattanooga is his main focus. The city government does not have statutory enforcement authority, and that therefore the police cannot charge and arrest anybody, and that they don't have any more authority than my listener, my ordinary common Joe listener here at Nooga Radio. Is he right, or does the city of Chattanooga have lawful authority to operate a police department with statutory?
Basil?
Yeah, Basil Marceaux. Does the city of Chattanooga have statutory enforcement authority?
Yeah, I think old Basil's fallen off the spice rack there. Excuse the joke there.
Go ahead.
But anyway,
okay,
Basil.
I understand.
Sure, they have authority. I mean, the police have authority. They're a subdivision of the state. The state's vested in with authority. One element of authority that a subdivision of the state has, of course, is to go ahead and set out a law enforcement scheme or program. And that's what the city of Chattanooga has done ever since 1852, as far as I can tell. I mean, certainly they have the right to make arrests and all that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think they really has an argument to the contrary. But I'll be happy to talk to Mr. Marceaux. I've seen him from time to time.
Yes, sir.
Not very often, but
he does appear to be a crank. But if you look at the statutes that create these minor courts, sessions court and city court, it seems that the language implies only civil authority. So how is it that police departments routinely cite people to these civil venues? John Wolf, attorney.
Well, I think what he's saying is that, and this was something I think that Jerry Summers had reformed earlier. He was a very effective lawyer in Chattanooga, and Jerry Summers, I think, had brought out that the city courts, the municipal courts, really don't have the authority to fine people anywhere above $50, and they have no authority to send people to jail for any offense. So they basically, because of efforts of attorneys like him, they've limited the scope of city court authority. But that's not to say that officers for the city don't have arresting authority.
But
they can just send they just send you to the county jail.
Well, it seems to me that
if you have an offense, you're tried in the general sessions court of the county.
But how is that's also a civil court? How can police bring people there by citation to avoid arresting them? It seems like police should arrest everybody. Of course, which is, I think, politically untenable, but they should legally arrest everybody whom they're accusing of a crime. If they've done something that's a criminal matter, they should arrest them, book them, and take them to the county jail until they make bond. Why do these city courts exist? To relieve the pressure to do that, which seems to be Basil's argument.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
Well, listen.
I don't know why they... I know that the city court is a court of limited jurisdiction. There's no question about that.
Right. It's not. There's no record.
But, the Red Bank people do it too. I mean, these municipalities don't really have the cities don't have jails of their own. So when they make an arrest, they take them to the county jail, just like Chattanooga does. Chattanooga used to have a small jail, I think, and now they don't.
John Wolf,
John
Wolf, thanks for chatting with us. Much appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it, and we just hope for the best for Mr. Rogers' family, and I appreciate you letting me have a say.
Thanks. This is David Tulis. We've been chatting with John Wolf, attorney who's filed a suit on behalf of the mourning family of Billy Joe Rogers, who in April of last year died in the Bradley County Jail. And because he had signed the little tick on his driver's license, his organs were harvested while he was kept alive after an abusive death somehow in some unknown circumstances in the hands of authorities and prisoners of the sheriff of Bradley County, and so he was beaten and unresponsive. So someone took some kind of dislike against this inmate. And John says that there's so many people who are arrested in Bradley County that they're held sometimes in cars, seat belted and shackled into cars. Now that is a remarkable assertion that I've not heard reported. So if you, my listener, have connection with a reporter in Bradley County, have that writer look into this assertion. This is David Tulis. Now, the question that we want to get to in our program today is it's a kind of a large question, and you might say, how does it flow out of these questions of jurisdiction? But my suggestion is here at Nooga Radio that you, my listener, have jurisdiction. Okay, you have authority to do things. You have authority to say no. You have authority, my listener, to live your own life unmolested and unimpeded, though there are people all around you, mostly in the civil realm, who want to stop you, to tax you, to fine you, to count you, to get you into their program, into their favor, right? And you get into their favor by asking a favor of that party, and being compliant and complicit and following all the rules. Take that first dollar. Take that first dollar, and you then become one of us. And we all have a stake in the survival of our enterprise, and we are going to prosper together in a state economy, right? In a corporatistic and state economy. I argue here that this is a bad idea. I argue that we need to have an end of violence. And you say, well, yeah, everybody wants for an end of violence, but I'll tell you the reason we can have an end of violence is because American society is generally peaceable, and we don't have to have a military occupation, whether by courts and by officers of the state. We don't need to be militarily occupied. And I'm wondering whether we really are made better and safer by having 500 people in the police department in Chattanooga. If we had 5, would we be less safe or more safe? I mean, most people would say, well, we'd be safer if we have more. In fact, Larry Groen, the conservative, was running for mayor, wanted to have more police. And others, though, Chris Long, arguing that we have fewer police. I wonder if the whole model could not be dispensed with entirely, given the sharing economy, and given that in any room where there are a group of people, you, my listener, and all the rest, all have smartphones. Smartphones are the dispatch center of the modern era. And I think if we have the right apps, and we're all members of the same club, if you will, by in the sharing economy, we can bring help when it's needed, whether it's a heart attack and an ambulance is needed, a fire truck is to be beckoned by someone placing that call, or a robbery in progress. We can all cooperate and catch the robber, chase the robber. Do you know how many people have guns in our city? Thousands of people are concealed carry permit holders, and other thousands beyond that have guns in their cars. Most people have guns in their cars. So we have a very well-armed and vigilant population, vigilant people. The citizenry in Helena County is to be commended for their care for public safety, defending women and children. And so even without police, I think we would catch the bad guy. But we might need some expert help in solving murders. That would be where the police would be helpful. This is David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com, Chattanooga's premier house buyer. Do you have a house you need to sell fast? We are buying. Call us today. We are local folks. We will buy your house as is, no repairs needed. We will give you a cash offer and close on the day of your choice. Call us right now, 423-834-7321. Need to sell a house fast? We are buying. Are you experiencing one of these situations? Inherited a house you have no need for? Behind on your property taxes? Nightmare tenants making your life miserable? Too many repairs needed and don't have a desire to fix. Behind on payments and facing foreclosure. Recently divorced and need a way out of the house. Never really wanted to be a landlord and just want to cash out. Trying to relocate and need to sell your house? Do you need to sell a house fast? We are buying. No fees, no hassles, no repair costs. Close on the day of your choice. Our process is simple. Call us today. We inspect your property right away. We make you a fair cash offer. We close on the day of your choice. Call us today, 423-834-7321. Visit our website, ibuychattanooga.com. Call us today, 423-834-7321. ibuychattanooga.com.
Need windows? Hey folks, do you need new windows? Good news. Window Depot of Chattanooga has a great special going on right now. 10 high-quality, energy-efficient double-hung vinyl windows installed for only $29.90. That's right, 10 double-hung vinyl windows, only $2,990. And yes, they qualify for the TVA rebates. Call 894-0011. Window Depot of Chattanooga today, located at 5950 Shalford Road. Call 894-0011 today.
Here comes the bride, she's walking down the street.
And she's wearing a stunning diamond ring that's a fraction of the cost that her man would have paid at one of those overpriced mall jewelry stores. Rick Davis has a plethora on quality diamonds and gold rings, and he wants to pass the savings on to you. Did I say plethora? How about overabundance? That's right, an overabundance of gold and diamonds. So before you decide to get crazy and pay full retail on an overpriced piece of jewelry from one of those cookie-cutter mall jewelry stores, come on out and see Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Top quality gold and diamonds at a fraction of the cost. Intermarital bliss with an engagement and wedding ring from Rick Davis. Hey, he'll also buy your gold and diamonds with cash, and more cash. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And there goes another happy bride.
Simple cremation for $895. Why spend more? ChattanoogaCremationCenter.com. ChattanoogaCremationCenter.com. Value you want, service you trust. $895. ChattanoogaCremationCenter.com.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in. Take a look. Consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads. I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots. They touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee.
What's the hassle, Schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
WPLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
WSDT Saudi Daisy Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. Governor Greg Abbott calls it a done deal.
Texas has now banned sanctuary cities in the Lone Star State.
But groups opposed to the law Abbott signed last night are promising a court fight. They believe the bill, which forces police and other local officials to cooperate with federal immigration agents, is bad policy and bad law. Gregorio Casar is a city council member in Austin.
I'm confident that in the course of the next few weeks and months before this bill ever goes into effect, you're going to see cities across the state filing lawsuits and protests like this erupting in every city in Texas.
The law is scheduled to take effect September 1st. In Washington, a few hours from now, Sally Yates will testify before a Senate subcommittee investigating an ex-Trump administration official's ties to Russia. CBS News correspondent Jeff Pegues.
The former acting attorney general is expected to contradict public White House official statements about this issue. Multiple congressional and law enforcement sources say Yates notified the White House that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was not forthcoming with the vice president about his contacts with the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. According to sources, she also informed the White House that Flynn was compromised.
President Trump is set to nominate 10 new federal judges. CBS's Stephen Portnoy has that.
There are currently 120 vacancies on the federal appeals and district courts for President Trump to fill. 2 of the judges he'll nominate today for the appellate bench are expected to come from the list he circulated during the campaign as possible Supreme Court picks. Democrats may object to the selections, but they're powerless to stop them. They ended filibusters for judicial appointments in 2013 when they controlled the Senate.
At weekend events in China, investors were offered the chance to get valuable U.S. immigration visas for themselves and family members. New York Times China correspondent Javier Hernandez says the law allows them to do that by putting money into certain development projects. In this case, it's a New Jersey apartment complex that's being developed by the family of President Trump's son-in-law.
During this course of this event, they displayed the president's image. Nicole Meyer herself said, "This project means a lot to me and my family."
Meyer is the sister of Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Published reports say a number of scientists have been removed from an EPA scientific review board. CBS News correspondent Vicki Barker.
At least 5 members of a major scientific review board have been dismissed, and a spokesman for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt tells the New York Times the academics may be replaced with representatives from industries whose pollution the agency is supposed to regulate. According to the Washington Post, the 18-member panel was already facing a proposed 84% budget cut, part of President Trump's overall plan to slash the entire agency's budget.
A federal appeals court in Richmond is scheduled to hear arguments today on President Trump's revised travel ban. In early Wall Street trading, the Dow Industrials are down 31 points. This is CBS News.
Okay, everyone, Mother's Day is this Sunday. Do you know what you're getting for your mom? If you're looking for the perfect gift, Mom will love an unforgettable gift from Sherry's Berries. Right now, you can get their famous freshly dipped gourmet berries starting at $19.99 plus shipping. Just go to berries.com, click the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter special code 6060. That's berries.com, special code 6060. You have never seen dipped berries like these. They're huge, sweet, juicy, and covered in decadent toppings like chocolate chips and chopped nuts. And right now, they're starting at $19.99. That's amazing. Plus, you can pick your delivery date, and the berries are guaranteed to arrive fresh, delicious, and beautifully packaged, or your money back. My mom is going to be super excited when she gets her Sherry's Berries, and I know your mom will be too. Order now because Mother's Day is this Sunday, and this incredible deal ends this Friday. The only way to get this amazing offer is to go to berries.com, click the microphone in the upper right corner, and enter special code 6060. That's berries.com, special code 6060.
A defendant in a high-profile animal cruelty case in North Carolina has apparently taken her own life. CBS's Jim Krasula has the story.
Police in Fayetteville are investigating the apparent suicide of Marina Rollins, the 23-year-old who received a medical discharge from the Army's Fort Bragg in January, was facing animal cruelty charges along with her soldier boyfriend. They allegedly tied her service dog to a tree and shot it multiple times with a rifle. Prosecutors say the two could be heard laughing on a video they made as the dog was killed. Jim Krasula, CBS News, Greensboro, North Carolina.
The price of a gallon of gasoline fell a nickel over the past 2 weeks to a nationwide average $2.41 in the latest Lundberg survey. Analyst Trilby Lundberg says lower crude oil prices and an ample supply of gasoline contributed to the drop-off. Average prices range from $2.02 in Tulsa to $3.02 in San Francisco. Frank Sedapani, CBS.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM News Now. The GBI has been called in to investigate a murder in Chickamauga, and the victim's father is being charged in his death. This happened on Hood Avenue in Chickamauga. The suspect is a former Chickamauga police officer and a current detention officer in Walker County. The victim died from a gunshot wound to the chest. The GBI performing an autopsy soon. Firefighters rushed into a house on 7th Street to pull a man out of a burning building. The cause of the fire is still being investigated, and the man inside has been taken to the hospital. 2 Marines who were killed in the July 16th terrorist attack have posthumously been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the highest non-combat award, at Ross's Landing Park on Sunday. A young boy in Bradley County who reportedly accidentally shot himself. The Bradley County Sheriff's Office is investigating and will release more details as soon as the investigation is done. It's been said that district attorneys may be pressing charges. Keith Peterson, sometimes known as Keith Robinson, has been arrested after a carjacking in Chattanooga. He's accused of stealing a 1999 maroon Buick LeSabre from a man he knew from jail. That's your news now. Russell Stroud reporting.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
After this clear and cool start, expect some sunshine and warmer weather for your Monday. Still looking good. Highs into the upper 70s tonight. Not as cool. Lows into the mid 50s. For Tuesday, mostly sunny, warmer highs 83 to 85. Back into the 80s again on Wednesday. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks. It's also the place for national brands like Scott's and Miracle Grow and local expertise to help you grow the lawn and garden you've always wanted, only at Ace, the helpful place. And I source Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
I hope you're joining me in waiting for nothing to happen on City Council about Airbnb. I think what needs to happen is that the City Council needs to say, you know, this is part of the new economy, the future of our country, the future of the human race, and that's the digital sharing economy. The internet, on one hand, makes everything worthless, right? Have you ever noticed that? On the other hand, through the internet, we have all kinds of accessibility. We have the ability of people to link together, to group together, without regard to geographic limitations, right? Without regard to the slavery of geography. And in the sharing economy, where apps play a larger role, you can have a decentralization on many, many points. Decentralization is a global trend, and it is going to bring an end to the modern nation state, we have to hope. And with that, there will be the prospect of more liberty. Now, I know there are some naysayers, even in that narrative, who are bleak as could be. And they include Charles Hugh Smith, who's one of my favorite writers, who writes at oftwominds.com. He has just the bleakest prognosis. And has analysis which is rather, I really can't explain his solution very well, but it is in the direction of the end of cartels, the end of state-granted privileges and state-granted monopolies. You might call them titles of nobility. In the Tennessee Constitution and the federal one, titles of nobility are forbidden as a hangover and holdover from Europe's great families, its monarchical rulers and their lords and ladies who all controlled vast swaths of the economy, vast lands by marriage and by title. Right, they had a title of nobility, making each person one before whom other people, commoners, merchants, and farmers and tradesmen all bowed and scraped. Right. And under whose feet some of them starved because the wealthy man was too important to look down with any kind of mercy or grace to people who were legally inferior to him. We have that system here in Tennessee, and because the system is so rapacious and so really so ugly, overseen as it is by Republicans and Democrats, it is one that chills the heart of common people like you. And it does for me, for sure. But maybe, I won't say for sure in your case, but probably there are reasons in your heart to not care about Tennessee, not to have any kind of fealty or loyalty to that state or organization. You're more likely to have an affinity with America, right? And because you have an affinity with America, to have make a kind of a blind transference of that to the United States. Somehow the United States is the object of your worship, the object of your obedience, the object of your care. You identify with the kingdom, you might say the place, the republic, and so you're going to be moved by the military parade downtown. You'll watch that parade. You'll enjoy it with all the sirens, the whistles, the marching bands, and the shouts of the marching leader singing brave military songs about courage and being organized and marching forward. And you'll identify with America because you're identifying with the United States through its military apparatus, through its wars, and other things. Which when you think about those things, I want you to consider that maybe you're leaving out certain important aspects of that enterprise, right? The warfare enterprise. If we have a sharing economy, we have Airbnb, we have Uber, we have Lyft, we have many apps. We have look at the way in the media right now. You're hearing me perhaps on YouTube. Maybe you're watching me live on Facebook, where we are all the time. And I'm your host here, David Tulis, the man with the bow tie, tall, 6'2", and longtime reporter and a writer. I was an editor for 24 years at the local newspaper, the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Worked in that newsroom. Had the same job that whole time. Shows you that I'm not ambitious, right? That I can be satisfied by the stimulus of news accounts and news reports, and the publication of another man's newspaper. But now I'm on my own. I've been on my own for about 5 years after having resigned there as a copy editor. And we have a multifaceted media platform here, Nooga Radio, Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics, by the way, is our chief sponsor. That's Nooganomics. And it's a website that tries to make the free enterprise system exciting, and focusing a bit lately on the oppressions of the marketplace, the means by which liberty is stifled and stymied, and how we are decapitalized. We are in a period of great decapitalization. And that's you might say, well, is that good or bad? Well, it's bad. Okay, you want to be in a period where there's capitalization, where capital is created and not destroyed. It's destroyed by government. It's destroyed by people who take advantage of the civil authority and who do business as contractors or slave or subject to civil authority, and who operates in the famous nexus, the public-private partnership. That is how we do things in our country. We have effectively, in Italy or Germany, it would be called fascism, but here we call it public-private partnership. And we have President Trump, who, while he has many good things in his favor, is also very, very executive. He is continuing and strengthening executive government, which is, of course, unlimited. It is monarchical. It is absolutist. In other words, it believes itself absolute. Now, we have in some of President Trump's policies and some of his executive orders, we have judges saying, no, not so quickly. So there is the delaying there of divided government, showing how it's supposed to operate, where the will of the chief executive is thwarted by the law, right? The law, either Constitution, the law against the federal government, the law that restrains the federal government, or by statute, which invariably statutes are the means by which the federal government marches across the landscape, right? The means by which it rises, as in John's Revelation, rises the monster from the sea and covers the land. That's how the feds gain jurisdiction. It comes from the sea and covers the land and would destroy even the Christ child if it could, right? If it could only do that, it would certainly oppress the Christ child and his mother, washing them away. But there's a promise in that passage in the book of Revelation, where the ground, the land absorbs and drinks up the water sent to rush away, the cataract, if you will, sent to destroy and drown the mother and her child. And that's what's going to happen in the sharing economy. The land will absorb the sea again, and admiralty jurisdiction, maritime jurisdiction, which is the legal framework in which the national government operates, will be absorbed, right? It'll just go away. It'll dry up, and we'll be here in our land. We'll have the river. We'll have the hills. We'll have Main Street. We'll have Ottawa. There'll be Tiftonia, Saudi Daisy, Red Bank. these towns will more and more again exist independently of the great wave of cash and credit that are swamping the country, the great wave of rules and regulations and subsidies. We're talking about building the jail, right? A new jail. Well, we got to have some federal money for that, right? Got to have some Nashville money for that. I think the identification that people have with Nashville and the state of Tennessee is very, very weak. And so if there were a fundamental reform that in somehow abolished or broke up the state, I think people would not be upset. I don't think that they would care that much about that. But conservative Trumpian voters would be probably very aggrieved and insulted and offended and hurt. They would be in tears to think that the United States is going to break up. I think that they have an emotional and religious identification with America, and so through that to the United States proper, and which the United States is a government. Some would say it's a corporation of a special. It comes out of the District of Columbia, the federal district, swamping all the states. If we want to have affordable housing, how do we get it? Well, in the campaign for mayor, which was won by Andy Burke, the suit, there was some discussion about affordable housing in Chattanooga, and it was very, 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 very ordinary and absolutely unenlightening. And the reason it was not enlightening is because it did not account for, except for Chris Long. Chris Long was the only candidate as a builder and architectural consultant who I think understands the issue from a free market perspective. And that is that affordable housing is not possible if the more regulation you have, the more zoning you have, and the more construction on the use of land, such as the ordinance. And we get back to the proposed ordinance for Airbnb. Such restrictions on property, they're unconstitutional. Number one, okay, but number two, they have a quiet effect that the market just absorbs, and that is higher prices. Now, you might say, well, that's good, right? If we have regulation, that's good for me. I own a house in the city, and I want my house to be more valuable. I want it to be worth more, so that when I sell it, I can make a profit in the number of dollars, right? If I spent $110,000 to buy that house in 1990, and I sell it in 2018 next year for 190, I want to be able to make $100,000 in profit. Well, a lot of that, of course, is just illusory. It's illusory profit. It's not real profit. It's just it's because we have an inflationary currency, and so. But people do want, even though that's true, we can just lay that aside for a second, and overlook the debasement of the buying power of the dollar. But let's say you have $100,000 in profit. You want that, right? And you want people, and you want people, and you want the state to preserve your capital. By what? By force. So if we don't have affordable housing, whom are we to blame? Well, we're to blame people like you, okay, and like me. Why? Because we want there to be supports. We want there to be floors to keep the housing prices high. That is regulation. Regulation, and the more of it you have, the more it happens, raises the prices of housing and makes it less available. And that's that. In other words, if you don't have an operating market, you have a shortage, right? That's the cause. If you have a shortage, you're going to have rising prices. And that benefits all the incumbents. That is to say, all the people in Chattanooga who have houses, right? If you're an incumbent homeowner, you're here, right? You've got your house, you're all sitting pretty. You've got your lawnmower, you got your shed, you've got your driveway maintained, you got flowers going in, you're planting some nice trees along the road. And you're putting in a new sidewalk, right? You're making some nice back stairs to improve what comes off your deck. You're improving your property, and you want there to be a profit in that. And you want a guarantee. You effectively are complicit with the fact we have a shortage in housing for the poor. And you say, oh, David, here you go again, caring about the poor. I mean, because you care about the poor, you're concerned about police. And here now, you keep doing the same thing. You're concerned about the poor. So you're arguing against regulation. Well, yes. In effect, I am, because regulations force up the cost and they limit supply. So if you have an Uber rule coming into Chattanooga, if you have the city council member with its new members, Demetrius Coonrod, for example, and a couple other new members, you have this temptation to, well, we're here and we have the power, and we better somehow say something about this new development, because if we don't, it's just gonna sweep past us. We're going to be impotent. Well, that's the threat. Once you have power, seemingly lawful, right? If you don't use that power and make a definition, set words out there to control the language, right? By ordinance, control the language, control the ideas, control the thought processes, we are going to be left behind. And that is disastrous for you. Now, there's a desire on my part for there to be an unhampered free market. In an unhampered market, obviously, right? If rents rise, developers will respond. How do they do that? Well, they build more houses where it's needed the most, and thus potential prices are really at their highest. Rents will fall in areas, and developers will stop building housing there, right? Or they'll build elsewhere until the rents rise again. Now, in response to rising rents, current homeowners will turn their homes into boarding houses, right? Others may build so-called mother-in-law suites over their garages, or as I did, build a house in the back of their house for the mother-in-law or the mother. The number of ways to expand housing is really quite long, and it's long because there are thousands of people, and people want to do what they want to do, and so there are thousands of motives and thousands of reasons for housing to be developed. But there are obstacles, as I'm saying. And there's a great, just by the way, there's a great piece on this at LouRockwell.com, the great anti-state, anti-war, and pro-market website. Ryan McMakin is the writer. How governments outlaw affordable housing, and this is what he argues. He says that there are limits to this. There are limits against the unhampered free market, right? The hampering of the market, and that's through zoning and land use laws. That there must be single family or multifamily houses. You can or cannot rent out your bedroom to a non-relative. These kinds of things. You can or cannot build an auxiliary house on your property, right? You can't or cannot build an apartment on top of your garage to rent out to someone. And there are schemes. We have these schemes in Chattanooga big time, destroying the housing of black people just after the Second World War. It's called urban renewal schemes. And what they do is let the government plan out what's to be built. And what we have to say, well, the way you put that, David, it sounds like it might be a bad thing, but people really wanted that. Planning controls are very, very popular. And I think it's important just to look at that, because if it's popular, that means that people don't like local economy. They don't care about local economy. And in a way, they don't really care about their neighbors. They have a very constrictive view of their neighbors, and they're looking really out for themselves. It's self-interest, but self-interest using, you might say, what biblically we would call the magistrate, right? The governor, the civil authority, using the civil authority to maintain their own property value. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to control others. In many areas, it is the private sector homeowner who most demands that every townhouse, every apartment building, every storefront, right? Be controlled, be evaluated, and ultimately run and overseen and permitted by government bureaucrats. In other words, people don't believe in laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is French for live to do. Live and let live, essentially, the marketplace. Laissez-faire lets innocent people do what they want to do innocently, so long there's not a tort, right? So long that no actionable tort is made or done by one party against another. Laissez-faire would say, well, let people do with their own property and their own investments what they think is wise. Self-interest lets the marketplace accommodate and account for all interests in the end. Homeowners protest, right? And one thing that's come up in the Airbnb story is that if you're not designated, if you want to have an Airbnb house and you're outside the proposed zone that has been penciled in, well, then you have to get a zoning variance. And the problem there is that you'll have opposition. People don't want there to be a house on their street rezoned for commercial, because they think that, well, someone will build an apartment complex there later and I'll lose my value. Neighbors who don't want to live near a row of townhouses or have more cars parked in the street will protest to the city government. They'll demand a zoning hearing, and they'll fight to ensure that only a single family unit is allowed on a given lot. In many cases, they'll use the increasingly popular tactic of downzoning, Ryan says, in which people who bought property earlier with the hope of developing it later will be robbed of their property rights. They'll be told, sorry, that thing we once said you could do with your property, you can't do that anymore. This is done so that the community's other residents can maintain the status quo in that neighborhood until the end of time. And what these people are wanting is a static, stagnant neighborhood. They don't want things to move. They don't want things to turn over, to turn up, to be changed. They are living out. They're living out a fantasy, and they're living out really an idea that is antithetical to the idea of city life. Right? If you live in a city, you want movement. You understand things change. And so what I would say that you should do is, well, if my neighbor wants to rezone for commercial because he wants to be an Airbnb man and family, well, let him. Who knows what can happen there? Maybe good things can happen there. Maybe I'll meet new people. Maybe he will tear the house down and build a little apartment complex there. What's wrong with that? Well, we're worried about our own values. So we're going to make sure, because we have an extra legal controlling mechanism, that is to say zoning, and zoning boards and planning agencies, we're going to use those mechanisms to prevent this man, the neighbor, from using his property innocently and harmlessly. And we're going to guarantee our own purses. So you see, what happens is socialism always has adherents among the people who are its victims. The people who in these neighborhoods are the victims of the state. And now they want to use that same state to prevent a loss, right? They're using the state to prevent what they fear is a drop in the value of their homes in nominal dollars. And but notice what happens though if you have stagnant neighborhoods all across your city. Well, where do poor people live? Well, they have to travel to get to work, which means more damage on the roads, more demand on the roads, more use of gas, larger carbon footprint. If people could live in a free market, they'd live near where they work, and there'd be less travel, maybe more bikes going on the highway. The solution to control shifts the traffic, right? It shifts traffic to suburban freeways and shifts the cost to statewide taxpayers who must now foot the bill for extending infrastructure even further outward, because the inner areas, the sacrosanct inner areas of the city, don't allow for poor housing. They don't allow for changes and a marketplace. And subsidized housing and zoning that we heard about in the campaign, that's just, those arguments don't wash. They simply don't wash. They don't provide any relief for the poor at all. This is David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM News now. The GBI has been called in to investigate a murder in Chickamauga, and the victim's father is being charged in his death. This happened on Hood Avenue in Chickamauga. The suspect is a former Chickamauga police officer and a current detention officer in Walker County. The victim died from a gunshot wound to the chest. The GBI performing an autopsy soon. Firefighters rushed into a house on 7th Street to pull a man out of a burning building. The cause of the fire is still being investigated, and the man inside has been taken to the hospital. 2 Marines who were killed in the July 16th terrorist attack have posthumously been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the highest non-combat award, at Ross's Landing Park on Sunday. A young boy in Bradley County who reportedly accidentally shot himself. The Bradley County Sheriff's Office is investigating and will release more details as soon as the investigation is done. It's been said that district attorneys may be pressing charges. Keith Peterson, sometimes known as Keith Robinson, has been arrested after a carjacking in Chattanooga. He's accused of stealing a 1999 maroon Buick LeSabre from a man he knew from jail. That's your news now. Russell Stroud reporting.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
After this clear and cool start, expect some sunshine and warmer weather for your Monday. Still looking good. Highs into the upper 70s tonight. Not as cool. Lows into the mid-50s. For Tuesday, mostly sunny. Warmer highs 83 to 85. Back into the 80s again on Wednesday. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks. It's also the place for national brands like Scott's and Miracle-Gro and local expertise to help you grow the lawn and garden you've always wanted, only at Ace, the helpful place. And I'm Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
We have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Window Depot of Chattanooga. They're locally owned and operated and been around since 2008, installing top quality vinyl replacement windows. You get the best price and service in the area. Top quality double pane, energy efficient windows. They look great and save you money.
Oh, I love to save money.
You'll also save money on your heating and cooling costs. Call 894-0011. 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Sales and installation professionals. You'll get a fantastic job while helping to enhance the value, appearance, comfort, and efficiency of your most valuable asset, your home. Other window providers? No way. Window Depot of Chattanooga's windows qualify for the TVA rebate. Sliding doors, gutters, soffits, fascia, garage doors, and other home improvements. If you want to save a ton, call 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Window Depot of Chattanooga. Sales and installation professionals.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field line failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Need windows? Hey folks, do you need new windows? Good news. Window Depot of Chattanooga has a great special going on right now. 10 high-quality, energy-efficient, double-hung vinyl windows installed for only $29.90. That's right, 10 double-hung vinyl windows, only $2,990. And yes, they qualify for the TVA rebates. Call 894-0011. Window Depot of Chattanooga today, located at 5950 Shalford Road. Call 894-0011 today. Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident, raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us, Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by a Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out.
and Brad Keselowski has won Stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall that will bring out the caution. Caution waving once again. And again, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble. Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back, the field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chucks him off. Coming off turn number 2. Nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
And you, my listener, are the smart guy without the bow tie, right? The smartest guy without the bow tie. And I'm the smartest guy with the bow tie. And we work together to solve our personal problems. We solve our city's problems one man at a time. And, you know, you can tell a woman about my show. That's fine. And pass on the benefits of our tete-a-tete, which is to say our head-to-head. We put our heads together every day here at Nooga Radio. And we are AM 1240. And FM 92.7, live on YouTube, live on Facebook. Facebook is a bit glitchy. Have you not noticed? Yesterday at church during lunch, I cornered Dr. Bill Higgins. He is a neo-Puritan and gave the sermon at my church yesterday. And I said, Dr. Higgins, can you explain to me the difference between, for my Facebook listener, the difference between justification and sanctification? These are high doctrines in Christendom, treasured by the Protestant world, and a distinction treasured by a few in the Protestant world. And because many, and I say a few because many Christian people, though they love the Lord Jesus and they know they're saved from their sins by grace, they confuse the doctrines and they don't understand it. So I said, oh well, in 3 minutes or less, tell my listener on Facebook, right, what that distinction is. And he did, but it cut off after 50 seconds. So I'm chagrined about this problem. But we are amazed at the power of digital media, and thank you for giving Facebook a break and tuning in here on Facebook or live on YouTube. You know, if you're on your smartphone, you can go to YouTube at Hot News Talk Radio, and there we are. You can see that I've got my bow tie on today and what color it is and what jacket I'm wearing. I know that's important to you in radio, right? No, really, I know you don't give a whit about that. Your wife might, but you know she's not invited. This is just a guy thing, right? Now, there's there are good things to say sometimes about hate groups. You know, hate groups are they're said to be you know, neo-Nazis, neo-Confederates. There are sovereign individual groups. There are those who want to get rid of immigrants. There are those who want to elect Hillary Clinton. You know, there are all kinds of hate groups out there. There's one hate group which is worth mentioning, and I mention it because it's doing a great favor for the poor in Alabama, and it's the Southern Poverty Law Center that has gotten a lawsuit and filed a lawsuit. And I'm sure that is going to be treasuring a great deal of the money in this abuse of due process rights, filing a case against the city of Alexander and his police chief, Willie Robinson. I'm reading here from a Jack Burns report about this. 190 individuals will each receive, as a result of this case, $500 in cash. The settlement was for $680,000. Okay, so the plaintiffs, the victims of this government, are getting $500. I wonder where the bulk of the cash is going. Why? Because the city jailed them for being too poor to pay fines imposed on them by the town. We do have a problem in our day of debt slavery, though we thought that had gone out with the Dickens era system of civil government in Great Britain, right? But no, we still have it. Unlawful seizure of property, the Fourth Amendment, and due rights, Sixth Amendment, and the attorneys in the case have asked the sheriff to quit. So here's a quote: hundreds of impoverished residents have faced unconstitutional and unjust treatment in Alexander City simply because they were too poor to pay the fines, says Sam Brook in a press release. He's the legal deputy director of the SPLC. This shuttering of this modern-day debtor's prison, along with a monetary award of $500 now, right, brings justice to many of the people who are unfairly targeted for being poor. This is good, right? This is a good day in that town where people now can. They may have a debt, but they're not going to be arrested and jailed for not having paid it. 30% of the city's residents live below the poverty line. One plaintiff is Amanda Underwood. She was jailed twice for not being able to pay. She's a woman who previously had earned $8 an hour, and she has two young children, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. After not being able to pay a fine of $205 for traffic violation, she had to borrow money to secure the release, and on a separate occasion, she was fined $250 paper dollars for driving without a license, and she spent 5 days in jail working off her debt. What may have seemed like a quick way for the town to punish offenders and settle long-standing fines, fees, and court costs turned out to be a complete violation of Alexander's residents' civil rights. Jack Burns says, Underwood reveled in the victory, saying, I'm glad the city is going to pay everyone who they jailed to try to undo some of the harm they caused. I'm so proud that this lawsuit has made a difference. I hope it will help many others, especially those like me who have been unfairly punished for being poor. And that kind of thing is happening all around the country, where commercial government, that is to say, the civil magistrates, the municipal corporations around the country, run these systems. Now, I want you to go to Nooganomics.com. I've got highlighted an important story. Probably the most significant legal issue in the past 20 years in Tennessee is exposed there. I'm the first journalist to have written about it, and I'm not sure what kind of can of worms it is opening in just the reporting. I mean, the reporting itself is important. The underlying story is of a plaintiff, Basil Marceaux, said to be a crank and buffoon, the perennial candidate for governor, right? The man who is proud of his having been an internet sensation 7 years ago when he was in the primary and got 3,000 or 4,000 votes from across the state. A Saudi Daisy resident, lives in a ramshackle trailer with family members, and is an importer and a historian and a legal reader. He reads the laws and has very boring pursuits, right? So somewhat like me. I'm somewhat like that. I can spend an afternoon at UTC Library reading LexisNexis and never quite getting to the end of what I was wanting to do there. But he is making claims this afternoon at 2:00 in Judge Neil Thomas's court, and it's about whether or not, effectively, the short question is, can the legal question he's asking, you might think is kind of complicated. And here, let me find the line where it says, can the criminal court hear my criminal case if it originates within city limits? He's getting conflicting answers to that question, and it appears that there's an unconstitutional blocking of his right of appeal. And that is because of a confusion and an abuse that's taking place on a massive scale, potentially, across the state, with the agreement of the attorneys in each city and the bar that is, and the courts in each city. And he's saying effectively that inferior courts cannot be used to handle criminal matters. That would be city court and sessions court. All criminal cases start off in sessions. If you're cited, if you're arrested, right, you have to first go to sessions court, which is a civil venue. How is that possible? And I just asked John Wolf that question. He couldn't explain how it is that criminal cases are routinely started in sessions. And well, there's a shorthand. There's a reason for that. And the system does not want to have to jail and indict every person charged. If the system had to do that, the entire law enforcement apparatus would collapse, because political pressure would forbid any further work in law enforcement. Law enforcement would drop by 97, 98%, I'm guessing. And anyone arrested, anyone who's going to be charged has to be booked, has to be arrested and booked, right? No one is cited to criminal court, to the sessions court or city court. No one can be cited if Marceaux is right. These are unusual questions, I know, but he's raised the issue and I've written. I'm the first journalist to write about them in the state, and he's been arguing the same thing. He says for 15 years, intensely has come upon the right question in the past 6 years. He says, and so you won't find this out anywhere except Nooganomics.com. So it's a featured article today at Nooganomics.com. It's long, it's kind of long, and it's a legal issue. But if you're an attorney or know an attorney, ask him what he can say about this. Attorneys all agreed not to make any noise about this problem that he's describing. And I just want you to take note of that. There was a funeral for Jordan Edwards this weekend, the boy who was shot by a police officer who's being charged with murder. He'd been fired. And we want to also to ask a question about language, right? Language is what my job is all about. It's about using words. And sometimes my children correct me. I want to say something edifying, say at the table. And my son, the last child, I've got 4 children, the last child at home said, Dad, you're not on the air. And so it's really hard sometimes to have any kind of useful conversation with my children because they think they've heard it all before, right? What I talk about with you, my listener, I would offer is just basic table conversation, right? Things that we talk about here, in my mind, are apt for the table. And yet, because I'm about words for a living, I write a great deal. I have a pretty decent output in journalism as a practitioner of that art. I have a lot out there. Of course, there's in many words there's sin, right? We're cautious about James, the Lord's brother, writing in his epistle about the hazard of words. And so I'm aware that I'm always walking in a minefield, and I need to be careful about what I say and not overstate things and not accuse falsely and not be unjust and unfair in delivering the argument for the marketplace here. And that's what I do. By the way, David Tulis here, AM 1240 and FM 92.7 on your smartphone, a smart device. Just get the TuneIn Radio app. It's free. And just look for Nooga Radio or Hot News Talk Radio. And there we are. On YouTube, it is Hot News Talk Radio. On Facebook, where we are always live, it is Nooga Radio. And words are important. This is a good story by the AP today in the Times Free Press that has some local interest about the Ooltewah rape, high school rape case, and it points out that all across the country, according to the Times Free Press, citing with its report from the AP, there are many hazing and bullying actions, and the description of these actions are just that, hazing and bullying. But they often are sexual in nature. These attacks are mischaracterized as hazing and bullying, and there are 70 sexual attacks. In the past 5 years alone, the AP found that there were 70 sexual attacks of all types of sports in public schools, and that number is just a tip. And the reason that the number is not bigger is that the way things are reported, the way that they are, you might say, covered up by administration and even participants who realize that, well, we've stuck a coat hanger or a pool cube up a fellow player's anus. And so we are in trouble, and this is not just fun and games anymore. There's clearly we have blood, we have a hospital visit, and Hank Newer is a hazing historian. The story says at Franklin College in Indiana. He says it's amazing to me that there hasn't been a public outcry on this to help stop it. And the story focuses on the use of words, right? How words that come from the lips of coaches and administrators minimize the severity rather of this very human problem, right? The young team, they're vigorous, they're having fun, they're wild, they're dangerous, they're careless, right? Their manliness is exhibited in how carelessly they treat their fellow player and what vile things they can do to him. Right? There was a story in just today's news cycle about a university where a teen young man died from a hazing at a fraternity where there was a rush from one table to the next with a drinking. You had to drink something at each table and you become just totally besotted. And so he was injured and drunken and died. This story in the Times Free Press today quotes a a sports safety expert, as he's called, from the National Federation of State High School Associations, who says that language is everything. If anyone knew what kind that their kid was going to run the risk of being sexually assaulted to be part of a team, we wouldn't have anyone playing any sports. So we have these mass systems of schools that run against the individual, but we all identify with our local school, right? Our local school belongs to us. Our dads went there. Our grandparents went to that public school, and so it's only natural that we would go there too. No, one can't think beyond the custom, right? The custom is so powerful. And then in the school, there is this threat, and that's because people are there. You might say at random, right? They're just people in your district, right? The school district, a random line that throws people together for their benefit, right? We have to say that schools brings diversity in experience, and yet also there's danger, right? People are there by compulsion. There's the Tennessee compulsory attendance statute, which brings them there, and though parents have options, of course, they can go to the private sector, they can homeschool, but they're there because they don't have a choice, right? So they're obedient to the state, and they send their children there. Everybody goes, and it's so customary to go to school today that the attendance statute is not even an issue. No one even talks about the attendance statute. It's not forcing anybody to do anything, right? There's no force anymore because people are habituated to going to the warehouse for their schooling. Now, there's a story at Federalist.com about competency-based education, which is the new version of OBE, outcome-based education. And there's the fact that Catherine DeVos has taken the head, or I'm sorry, Betsy DeVos has taken the head of the education department, is not really anything to be too glad about. Things change only in a very minor way, and often the things that change are ones that draw media attention, right? Things you can talk about. The structure of the deep state, the structure of the modern surveillance state is largely unchanged as she's coming on board, and probably won't change at all. The abolition of that department is what the marketplace would call for, and yet President Trump is not. He's not going to be doing that. That's not something that he cares about. Well, competency-based education assumes benchmarks. And here, this is for schooling, right? We're not talking about education anymore. We're talking about schooling. Benchmarks, you think, were part of this program. It personalizes learning. The Federalist says it ensures that a student understands each concept before moving on to the next. The writer of this piece goes on to say that CBE, competency-based education, is essentially the same thing as OBE. But now it posits that the government should establish outcomes it wants students to achieve and then work backwards, setting interim benchmarks along the journey to that goal. And so you pass the benchmark, you are therefore competent. But what's forgotten here is that education is not about learning competencies, and there are some things that just simply can't be taught by this method, this scientific sort of robotic scheme. What about literature? What about history? You can't teach history through benchmarks. It's just impossible to do that. What we're dealing with here is not knowledge. It's not spiritual knowledge. It's not personal knowledge. It's not knowledge of morality. Certainly not knowledge of Christianity, the basis of all morality. These areas of knowledge, these areas of character, are outside the pale of this system. And what's going to happen is the Federalist predicts is a narrowing of the curricula to meet these benchmarks. Again, we're not talking about education, but we're talking about schooling. The goal isn't to instill academic knowledge, but it is to train children to give responses in non-cognitive realms, to exhibit psychosocial skills, it says, that the government considers most valuable. This is what prompted opposition from parents then under OBE, and that's what's prompting opposition now. It is a kind of robotic scheme. It is utilitarian child training for jobs, right? Your child is being trained to produce a function, to exhibit a function. It's under behaviorism, the model of behaviorism, where there's strict surveillance and you're not given the means to think independently. That's what schooling is for. It is to prevent people from learning to think independently and according to one's personal gift and one's personal genius. this is modern schooling, and it's a 100-year-old program. It comes from social engineers and big business and social managers who don't care about the individual, right? Just as public health does not care about any individual in the vaccine scandal, so public school cannot, by definition, care about any individual. It is about a mass system. It is about the management of humanity in general. And so it uses these scientific methods that make it impossible to understand art. How can you study art if you have benchmarks, and then you work your way backward and show progress toward each benchmark? Is that not a stifling form of surveillance? Is that not just utterly dehumanizing? Why would you, my listener, if you claim to love liberty and you claim to love your children, why would you submit your children for another year to a system that has competency-based education as the coming framework, not really making major changes from what we've had in the past here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga? It's the same old, same old. There's not a reform. These are not reforms. These are refinements of the existing program. We're brought to you by Window Depot of Chattanooga.com, Window Depot of Chattanooga.com, and Boyd Speedway. And this is David Tulis. I urge you to do the following. Love your neighbor and buy local. Near is better than far. Small is better than big, and simple than complex. And down in the footnotes where the good people fight against you, I argue on your behalf in small type that personal is better than corporate, and that physical is better than abstract. This is David Tulis, the editor of Nooganomics.com. Go there and find out the biggest story in 20 years in the state, I'd like to suggest, is going to be discussed in court this afternoon at 2 o'clock. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I've been a customer at SNS 14 years. It's way out of my way, but I'm well treated. I believe what I'm told. Price is reasonable. David Tulis here. Make an SNS appointment today. This week, get $50 off any 30,000-mile service or timing belt repair. And get a free combat knife as a gift. SNS Auto Repair specializes in Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. 6-time winner of Best of the Best Award in the Times Free Press. 855-3436. SSAutorepair.net. 855-3436.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
If I'm the city's most intelligent man, it's because I take 2 shots of Mind Enhancement Complex every day. Nature's Finest keeps me stocked with my mainstay, Formula 4. That's where I start. Formula 4. Industrial farming, soil depletion, mineral empty foods. I just say no. Ask about supplements, health, stamina, circulation, heart, prostate under control. Get the Nooga Radio David Tulis freebie. Save $2 on every 5. 20% off. Nooga Radio, Lee Highway, Nature's Finest.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300+ stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and 1 topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
I've got a $10 bill for you at the best paint store in Chattanooga. David here. Big savings in exterior stains. Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. More than a paint